end on time, so I'll really go very fast. So asking the right question. We received a brief from an industry manager as an example. He has a client who's a travel fair aggregator, similar to Booking.com, right? And they noticed that they've been seeing a decrease in revenue compared to a year ago. Now, I would like to maybe hear. So at this point, also I'd like to pause again and maybe hear some of your thoughts around what sort of challenges. What do you think? What do you think? What are your initial thoughts to answering this question or to defining the problem that this particular client may have? Remember, our client is a travel fee aggregator, as similar to Booking.com, and they've noticed a decrease in their revenue in the last 1 year. So I would just open the floor and hear your thoughts around what you think the actual problem is as part of defining the problem. Anyone, please.
Adibola here.
Oh, hi, Jibola.
Yeah, I mean, the very first thing is to look at what are the broader ranging factors, macroeconomics, microeconomics, and of course we're dealing with COVID now, so that's the big elephant in the room. But as an extension for thinking around that, you want to be able to think about what are the external environmental factors, then what are also the internals. Was there a new campaign? Was there a change in the product available to the customers? Like I mentioned, macro factors. Were there things that affected the income of people within the broad market range of the travel fair aggregator? Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you very much, Ajibola. Those are very, 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 very helpful questions. And but tying that back to what we learned in the last few slides, using the SCKQR framework, we can even go deeper on what is the situation. I agree with you. Looking at the microeconomy and the macroeconomic insight around what is going on within the client segment would be important to help this travel aggregator answer the questions they might have, right? In this particular case. So that's super helpful. Thanks a lot, Ajibola. Next slide, please. So we have defined the situation and complication on this slide, and I know we can read it on screen, but I'll just quickly breeze through it briefly. So the situation in this case was the two things we're trying to define is first the situation and complication. We're trying to define the problem. So we're trying to say, okay, the situation right now is that Africat, which is the example in case, is an online travel and booking aggregator. They are specialized in hotel rooms and in airfares. So that's part of understanding their industry. Remember the questions we defined in the last slide, specific to the situation, right? So we're just answering all of that. They specialize in hotel. They are based in a particular region in London, in this case, in Africa. Sorry, that's a typo. Started in 2005. The company is a digital native. They currently operate in over 50 countries. It's the second largest travel aggregator in the continent. They currently rank second from a share of voice angle, and a lot of their demand is poured in other regions. So potentially they are new to Africa, but a lot of their demand, as they've seen, is coming from other people looking to their site, but accessing that from some other parts of the world, including the US, the UK, and Germany. And to this situation, the complication we are seeing is that for the industry, so we've defined the industry. Now, what is going on in the industry? So that's part of what I think Ajibola was mentioning, around understanding, okay, the micro and macroeconomic trend within that industry. Understanding, okay, what's actually going on within that industry in the last 1 year. Has there been any decline or growth in the currency? Has there been inflation within the economy? And understanding, okay, what impact does that have on Africa's business in the region? And understanding this will help a whole lot in understanding and defining the problem that they may actually be facing. Because most times, client challenges are not usually, there's not usually not one size fits all approach to answering a client question. There may be a lot of other factors, beyond, okay, the advertising spend or the media they are currently advertising in, be it social, be it Google, or whatever platform they are advertising on. Next slide, please. So like we said, we start with the SCKQR framework, which is basically trying to define the situation, define the complication, and then the next area from there is then to define some key questions that will help us to even unlock, the challenges that this particular brand faces going forward. Next slide. Now, after defining the situation and complication, one of the very important piece to our analysis is asking key questions, which is basically what we are doing today. Critical thinking, understanding, okay, what are the key questions to ask in this particular case. First, we've done a bit of critical thinking in defining the situation and the complication that is related to this. But then we're going to step for that, then say, okay, what are the key questions that we can answer based on what we understand of the industry and the client's current challenge, right? And we usually follow on that framework also for defining key question, the SMART framework, right? Making our questions super specific, making it measurable, quantifiable, right? Making it action oriented. Is it something that's attainable, right? Is it can we access this data? Is data very relevant? So relevance is also important. Is it realistic? Can we act on the result of what we are saying based on the situation and competition we are saying, right? What sort of key question can we ask that is going to be relevant and realistic for the client to answer, right? What sort of question can we ask that would also show a measure of their performance and how different factors may have impacted upon their industry? So we can really go deeper to understand, okay, what is the challenge they may be facing right now, and how can we plug in as analysts to this challenge. And then the last piece is making it time bound. I think we mentioned that in the previous slide, defining the period to which we are analyzing the data for, right? If you're analyzing 2015, 2017 data, insight from that data may not effectively represent what's going on in the industry right now, but combining that data with a couple of other insights from other sources, maybe with the macroeconomic factor, can help us as analysts to define, like the major constraints that the client might be facing within their industry. Next slide, please. So, one of the things I will now mention, following what we just described around key questions, would be, we've mentioned what sort of questions, how to ask a key question, right? Which is following the SMART framework. Now, what sort of questions follow that approach? I'll start by giving examples of some bad key questions that you usually hear. And like I said, a lot of these examples are from a digital point of view. So talking about an advertiser who is looking to advertise in the digital space, right? An example is Africa is suffering from low acquisition or activity in the current year, right? This is not a question, and I know we'll all agree. I actually would have loved to even show this slide without already answering the question, so we can also, answer if these questions are very bad questions or very good questions. So one, the first question is a statement of fact. We know this. The second question says, should Africa improve their digital offering through search to increase their brand share of voice? Definitely, that's why they are here, right? The question they had asked in the beginning was, how they are currently seeing a decrease in revenue. So definitely increasing the share of voice, their brand share of voice, is part of the potential solution that they should be looking at, right? So this is not disputable. The third question is, do they need to optimize their digital strategy? Definitely, this is too generic. This is not a very, very strong question. Now, on the next slide, please. Um, um, I would show us some examples of some good questions, but also just before that, I know we are running late on time, but I still want to make this very interactive. I would love to also get your own thoughts. Get some examples of how we can phrase some good questions, to even dig deeper based on the initial question that we heard, which is we are seeing a decline in our revenue in Africa. What may be going wrong? What sort of key questions can we ask as data analysts that work in the digital space, for example, in digital advertising space, as an example, to help the client even understand, to even better understand the client's pain point and potential data points that we can use to tell them the trends and the opportunity within their industry. So anyone who would like to contribute or maybe share their own thoughts around some good questions that we could have asked instead of these very generic questions. Please feel free to unmute. Anybody? Anybody? Okay. Okay, I'll just go on in the interest of time. Next slide, please. So I'll just go back again to look at the situation and competition we already defined. We said the situation was Africa is an online travel and booking aggregator. They specialize in hotel rooms and airfares, and they're based in South Africa. I know it's currently okay. I think for the purpose of this call, let's just keep it at London, so we don't keep confusing everyone on the call. So Africa is based in London, started in 2005. The company is a digital native. The company operates in over 50 countries. It's the second largest travel aggregator in the world based on their revenue size, and equally has the second largest brand share of voice, followed by demand in the US, UK, and Germany. The three largest countries by revenue. So those are the three largest countries by revenue which they currently operate. But according to them, they've been seeing a decline in their revenue. But this is what we know about them. And the complication we know to this is that in the last year alone, they've seen a massive growth in their revenue. They've seen a massive growth in customer acquisition and activity. And they think that some of this was so the competition we understand is based on the macroeconomic data we've seen, is that it might be due to some currency exchange. There's been high pound and euro. There's high pound and euro against the US dollar. So I think the US dollar has been declining versus euro, and it's becoming relatively inexpensive. To book flights, and the economy has been sort of stable. Also, I think one of the things that was mentioned in the competition we defined here is that, sorry, I'm having issues with my internet, so I can barely read what's on the screen. But I think from recently, they went from bad to worse, and their brand of voice recently has gone from the number 2 spot to number 3, and that's a decline of 5% year on year, right? So that's currently the challenge we've seen. Next slide, please. Based on this situation that we have seen, some good questions can usually ask, maybe to even unlock and understand, this business challenge, right? And before even thinking of, okay, what data points to look out for is one, why has Africa's customer acquisition and subsequent revenue decreased by 10% year on year? What is going on? So as an analyst, you're trying to, okay, why is this the case? Is there a reason? And in the next couple of slides, I'll definitely go through how we can even go deeper to understand, okay, what this even means. The second other question we can actually ask, even to dig deeper into the information we have from our client, is why has their brand share of voice dropped by 5% year on year compared to others in the market? I mean, these questions are very valid, and I'm sure there are other questions that are valid. I mean, looking at these questions, I'm still very happy to hear your own thoughts. So if there are other people that would like to maybe even include maybe one or two more questions, right, that we could ask ourselves to even understand, on a deeper scale, what is going on with Africans and how we can help them grow. Anyone, any thoughts?
Hi, Solomon. This is Sibylla.
Oh,
One
it's
of my
Billy.
questions would be, hello. One of my questions would be, are we looking at the entire Africa or maybe specific countries, or can we see which countries compared to what the entire client base where it dropped off the most, and then see why? I don't know. Just going deeper into that.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's very, 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 very strong. I agree with you, Sibili. It would be really important to also ask to see, what specific countries would they like to, even go deeper on, or even or could be responsible for the decline that they are currently seeing. Totally agree. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I have, this is Jubala here. I have a few thoughts. What I'm struggling with is how to make the question fit into the SMART model. I'm struggling to find a measurable aspect for it, but I'll just go ahead. The question is, so has Africa uh, has Africa marketing or advertising drops in any way?
Yeah.
Yeah, then have have there been any brand specific events that have happened to deteriorate the brand in any way, to cause such a huge drop in revenue?
Mm. Mm. I mean, very, very good question. So thanks, Jibola, for adding that. I think those will be questions to specifically ask the client to even dig deeper to understand, what is going on from their own point of view. And I think that will be part of the define phase, right? As part of defining what the situation is, what are the complications we've been saying, right? For the key question aspect, we as analysts are now acting based on data we have from the define phase to ask ourselves, oh, what can we dig deeper into? So I totally agree with you. Your question is very, very strong. That will go to the client, and you would maybe want to ask that question to even understand, what is changing from their own point of view, and how has that been affecting, like how has that potentially contributed to the challenge they are currently seeing as a business? So totally very good question. Thank you very much, Sibele and Jibola. So I think I'll just go on based on that. Just a quick one. Emmanuel, if you could please help refresh the slides, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Is it okay now?
I think it should be. Thank you.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, so next slide. So I think part of using so I'll just dissect the current question that we showed and how that connects with the SMART model, right? So the first question was, why has Africa's customer acquisition and subsequent revenue decreased by 10%? So the specific segment of this question, the specific question here is, why has their customer acquisition, right? That's a specific thing. Why has that dropped, right? And that's the result we're trying to, that's one of the things we're trying to potentially, like solve for down the line. The actual part of the question is the decrease we've seen. The measure is the 10% we are seeing. And the time here is year on year. This year versus last year. That's the time factor. in the question that was asked, right? So I can go over this again. So for the first question, the S and R of our smart model, as we defined earlier, is the customer acquisition, and that's important to the business, right? That affect their bottom line down the line. So why has it declined? So the question, why has customer acquisition declined? That is a specific one. The actionable component is the decrease we are seeing. That's the action that is currently going on. It's a decrease. Okay, why is there a decrease, right? And the time and measure here is the 10% year-on-year change that we are seeing. So I don't know if there's any question on that analysis, on that analogy. Can I carry on?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just go on to the next slide quickly. I'm just trying to open my own slides here. So just a quick recap. As part of defining the problem, we start by asking some good questions. Don't go right to the solution. Also, we went through the framework for defining the problem, which is the SCKQR framework. And the SC area of it is very important to understand, okay, what's the situation right now? What are the potential complications to that situation that the business has described to me? And what are the key questions I can try to answer with this analysis, right? And the key questions should follow the SMART framework and should be result-oriented. So we start by asking good questions. We think about ways of defining the situation and the complication of the problem to a problem, and we define the context to narrow down the key questions, right, by contextualizing it. So I think some of the questions Jibola also asked were, on that way to understand, okay, what's the context behind this? What does this mean for you as a brand? What have you been doing differently that may have caused this decline that you're currently seeing? And then following the SMART approach also, as we described earlier. Next slide, please. Right. So that's it about the defining the